Chapter 13. Changi Airport, Singapore. Oliver had just bought his flight to London and was in the process of stealing an extra pillow from the seat behind him when Kitty called. Morning, Kitty, he said cheerily, steeling himself for the barrage he knew was about to come. Did you sleep well? Are you fucking kidding me? That was the worst night of my entire life. I know several billion people who would have happily traded places with you, Kitty. You got to attend one of Yolanda's Amanju's legendary dinners. The world's most acclaimed chef prepared a 12-course tasting menu for you. Did you not enjoy that? I thought the langoustines were superb. Ah, their so-called genius chef from that Della Cellar place should be locked in his own cellar and they should throw away the key. Come on, aren't you being a bit harsh? Just because you don't appreciate deconstructed surrealist Catalan fusion cuisine doesn't mean you should sentence him to the gallows. I could have eaten 10 more plates of that jamon Ivory flash frozen fresh fried rice. How could I possibly appreciate the food when I was being tortured? I've never been more humiliated in my life, Kitty said. I don't know what you mean, Kitty, Oliver said lightly as he took the sack of in-flight magazines out of his seat pocket and shoved them into the pocket adjacent to him before the passenger arrived, anything for the extra legroom. Everybody at the dinner curtsied to Colette. The snotty Swedish ambassador guy next to me glared at me when I didn't move, but I'll be damned if I curtsied to my own stepdaughter. Well, Thornton obviously did not know who you were, and Kitty, that whole curtsy thing was a complete farce. I don't know which edition of Debrett's Yolanda Amanjiru is reading, but she was absolutely incorrect. A British Earl does not have precedence over the First Lady of the country where he is nothing more than a visitor. They should have been bowing to her, but these Singaporeans are so awed by her well that I've too bit titled that they just bow and scrape away like subservient little toadies. I remember a time when the Countess of Mountbatten came to visit Castle Park and Sue wouldn't even come downstairs to receive her. You're missing the point. Everyone treated Colette like royalty all through the dinner. They were dressed like peasants and the people were still sucking up. That idiot on my right wouldn't even lift his fork until Colette lifted her fork. And then the minute she was done with her dinner, we all had to stop. The Carolina Herrera perfume flan was the first thing I was actually enjoying. But then dinner abruptly ended and the royal couple was off. The last thing I thought I'd ever wanted to eat was a dessert that tasted like Carolina Herrera. But it was superb, wasn't it? Well, aren't you at least glad the dinner passed from the instant Colette didn't try to insult you or cause a scene? No, what she did was worse. She didn't acknowledge my presence, and I'm married to her father, the man who pays all her bills, even though she won't talk to him anymore. Do you know how hurt he feels? That ungrateful, spoiled little beast. Kitty, I wouldn't take it so personally if I were you. There were 30 of us in that ghastly room, 60 if you count the ridiculous footman, and Yolanda was dominating every minute of Lucien and Colette's time. Trust me, I was right opposite from them. You were on the other end of the table, hidden behind those ridiculous birdcage counterpieces. I honestly don't think she even saw you. Colette saw me, I can assure you. She doesn't miss a thing. Why was she even in Singapore anyway? Lucien is an environmentalist, and they are going to be based in Singapore for the next month. That's all. They're on their way to Sumatra to observe the orangutan situation. What orangutan situation? Oh, it's just a tragedy. Thousands of orangutans are dying because of deforestation in the natural habitats. Colette's become quite involved in orangutan orphan rescue. That's what you're talking about? That's what you talked about? There was no mention of me, of her father? Kitty, I can assure you that the only people in that room that were mentioned by name happen to be orangutans. So she doesn't know you and I have a connection? She doesn't, but what would it matter anyway? Why don't you just come over and say hi, be the bigger person and welcome her to Singapore? That would have been the smart move, Oliver said as he struggled to tuck his leather valise under the seat next to him. I am her stepmother. She should introduce herself to me, not the other way around. Wait a minute. Are you saying you've never met Colette? Oliver was genuinely shocked. Of course not. I told you. She hasn't seen her father since she found out about our affair, and she wouldn't come to the wedding. She hasn't set foot in China in more than 2 years. She told him that he was marrying a whore. Oliver could hear the tears in her voice, and he began to see the situation in a whole new light. No wonder Kitty had been traumatized when Colette made her grand entrance last night. In China, Kitty had been eclipsed by Colette in absentia, and here in Singapore she had been eclipsed again in one even more dramatic fashion. A flight attendant gestured to Oliver. Kitty, my flight to London is about to take off, so I have to put away my phone. I thought no one cared if you use your phone in first class. Well, you don't know this, but I'm one of those aviation geeks that actually likes to watch the safety demonstration. I didn't know you were off to London again. You should have told me. I would have let you on my planes. That's very kind of you, Kitty. I'm going to spend the next 14 hours on the flight coming up with a plan. I promise you, Colette will never humiliate you again. You promise? Absolutely. Look on the brighter side. You have so much to look forward to. Your total cover is coming out next month. You'll be an absolute sensation, I tell you, and you're besties with Yolanda. Now, this is just the beginning for you, Kitty. Colette has to head back to some drafty old manor in England while we are designing you the most beautiful, spectacular house Singapore has ever seen. Kitty sighed. Oliver was right. There was so much to look forward to. She put down her phone and looked in the small gilt mirror that was given to her as a party favour last night. She did look a bit like Emma Watson, the actress who played Hermione Granger, and Oliver, with his big round spectacles, looked a bit like Harry Potter. Oliver really was a kind wizard, and now he's going to wave his wand and bring even more magic into life. On the SQ909 flight to London, Oliver turned off his phone and tucked it into his seat pocket. A flight attendant suddenly hurried into his row. Excuse me, is that an extra pillow I see? I'm afraid I'm going to need that, she said with an apologetic smile. I'm sorry, I didn't even see, Oliver lied. And is that your leather bag? I'm going to have to ask you to tuck it under your own seat. Make sure the straps are tucked in completely. We have a very full cabin here in economy class today, the stewardess said. Of course, Oliver said as he bent down to retrieve his bag, cursing suddenly. It was going to be a very long flight. Chapter 14. Tysero Park, Singapore. The morning light filtering through the window made the mahogany Art Deco furniture in Susie's bedroom glow like amber, and Nick was shocked for a moment to see how tiny and frail his grandmother looked in the middle of her hospital bed, the machines clustering around her like an army of invading robots. It had been almost 5 years since he had seen her, and now a tremendous sense of remorse descended over him. How had he let so much time pass? He had lost 5 precious years because of a quarrel, because of his pride. As Nick approached her bed, he was temporarily at loss for words. Astra stood by Nick's side for a moment, and then she announced a gentle voice, "Amma, where's Nicky?" Susie opened her eyes and gazed up at her grandson. Tina. He looks more and more like his grandfather every day, she thought to herself. You look even handsomer than before. I'm glad you haven't put on any weight. Most men put on weight after they get married. Look how bloated Eddie has become. Nick and Asher both laughed a little, breaking the tension in the room. I'll be back in a while, Asher said, quietly slipped out through the bedroom door. No sooner had she closed the door behind her than Professor Wood entered Senior's receiving room. Good morning, Professor Wood, Asher said, cheerily blocking his way. The doctor was momentarily taken aback. It had been more than a week since he had seen Astrid, and he couldn't believe how she was dressed today. Holy Annabelle Chong, she looked even sexier than he could have possibly imagined in that skater punk outfit and those bootylicious camouflage pants. It was better than any Japanese schoolgirl porn site. Was she wearing a sports bra under that big hoodie? Her body was a work of God. Recovering himself, Professor Un put on his blasé, clinical tone. Astrid, welcome back. I was just about to run the morning vitals on your grandmother. Oh, don't you think that can wait for a moment? Why don't you give me an update first, since I've been away? Mama seems rather well this morning. Could her condition be improving? Professor Winfrey, it's possible. We put her on a new cocktail of beta blockers, and she's benefited from a substantial period of rest. I'm so grateful for all you've done, Astrid said warmly. After I look after her latest EKG, I'll be able to give you a more accurate prognosis. Tell me, Doctor, have you heard of a specialist at St. Luke's Medical Center in Houston named David Scott? Dr. Scott has developed an experimental new treatment for congestive heart disease. Astrid continued, not letting him off the hook. Wow, beauty and brains. A woman who can talk so seductively about heart disease. Professor Un thought that Dame Charlie Woolley was one lucky prick. If only Astrid came from another family. If only she wasn't so bloody rich, she could be his mistress. He would set her up at his secret apartment at the Marks and watch her do laps naked in the pool all day. Inside the bedroom, Nick was wondering what precisely to say to his grandmother. Nehoma, he said, and then immediately wondered why he had asked her such a stupid question. I haven't been too well, but today I'm feeling better than I have in many weeks. I'm so glad to hear that. Nick crouched beside Susie and looked her squarely in the face. He knew that the moment had come for him to deliver his apology. As much as he had been hurt by her, and as much as he felt that she wronged Rachel, he knew that it was his duty to ask for her forgiveness. He cleared his throat and thought, I'm so sorry for the way I behaved. I hope that you find in your heart to forgive me. Sue looked away from her grandson, let out a long, slow exhale. Nikki was home. Her dutiful grandson was by her side again, kneeling at her feet and asking for redemption. If only he knew how she truly felt. She was quiet for a moment, and then she turned to face him again. Are you comfortable in your bedroom? My bedroom, Nick asked, momentarily confused by the question. Yes, has it been made up nicely for you? I haven't been staying here. I've been at Collins on Berrima Road. Yeah, no, Collins family sold that house a few years ago. He's living in Sentosa Cove now. Why on earth are you staying here? They're not here. It dawned on Nicky at that moment that his grandmother didn't have a clue that he'd been back over for over a week. She obviously had nothing to do with banning him from Tyshaw Park. He wasn't sure what to say at first, then quickly recovered himself. There are so many people visiting at the moment. I don't think there would be room for me. Nonsense. No one's supposed to be in your bedroom. See, you push a button inside, and within a few seconds, Madry and Petrovic do whatever I say. Please tell Aline to have Nicky's roommate. I have no idea why he's staying at some godforsaken place outside of here. So you instructed her lady's maids. Of course, ma'am, Madry replied. At that moment, Nick realised that this was his grandma's tactic manner of forgiving him. He felt something lighter, as if a gigantic boulder had been lifted off his back. As the lady's maid stepped out of the bedroom, Adam and Pippa walked into the sitting room, and for a few seconds before the bedroom door closed, saw their cousin Nick crouched by his grandmother's side. Ashford rose from the settee where she was seated, talking with Professor and Adam. It's so good to see you. Oh, Ashford, I'm sorry I didn't see you over there. Pia, this is my cousin Astrid. She's Auntie Felicity's daughter. I've heard so much about you, Pia said with a smile. Was that Nicholas I saw in there with Amma? We were just going to have a quick look in before breakfast, Adam said. Nicholas Young, Professor Owen said in alarm. He's in the bedroom, but we are under strict orders not to. Francis, hold that thought for a moment, Astrid said, placing her hands on his laps, her fingers almost grazing his inner thigh. The doctor trembled at her unexpected touch and nearly went mute. Astrid turned to Adam and Priya and said, I'm sure Amma will love to see you in a little while. She's doing much better this morning. Why don't you head down to breakfast first? I hear that Ching is making her famous crepes. Oh, I do love good crepe, Pia said. Me too, and Ching makes a special sauce of Belgian chocolate and loves golden syrup to drizzle over them. Professor One, have you ever had chocolate-infused golden syrup drizzled over your crepe? Oh no, the doctor said, sweating. Sweat began to beat around his temples. Well, you must. In fact, why don't you join us right now? Let's all go down for crepes. I'm sure the whole family will love to have an update from you about Amma, Astrid said, getting up from the settee. The three of them stood waiting for the doctor. Give me a moment. Professor Un said sheepishly. He knew that there was no way he would stand up at that moment. Back in the bedroom, Su Yi had instructed Nick to go to the top drawer of a bureau and fetch something for her. Do you see the pale blue box? Yes. At the bottom of the box are some silk pouches. Please bring me the yellow one. Nick unfastened the metal clasps on the blue embossed leather box and flipped open the lid. Inside was an assortment of objects and curiosities, vintage tortoise shell combs and coins of varying currencies mixed in with letters and faded off photographs. He came upon a small stack wrapped with a piece of ribbon and realized that it was every picture he had ever sent to her from his boarding school days in England. At the bottom of the box were several jewelry pouches, the kind made of padded silk that one saw in Chinatown, trinket shops all over the world. He found a small yellow pouch and returned to his grandmother's bedside. Su Yi unzipped the pouch, took out a pair of earrings, and placed them in the palm of Nick's hands. I want you to have these for your wife. Nick felt a lump in his throat as he realized the enormous significance of her gift. His grandmother was acknowledging Rachel as his wife for the very first time. He glanced at the earrings in his palms. They were simple pearl studs set on an old-fashioned gold post, but the luminosity of each pearl was stunning. They seemed to glow from within. Thank you, Amma. I know Rachel will love these. Su Yi looked at her grandson. My father gave these to me when I escaped Singapore before the war, when the Japanese soldiers had finally reached Johor, and we knew all was lost. They were very special. Please look after them carefully. We will cherish them, Amma. Now I think it's time for my morning pill. You call Madry and Petrovic in the breakfast room. Ching had set up a cooking station at the end of the long dining table. Rather unusually, she eschewed the use of a crepe pan to make her beloved recipe. Instead, she cooked them on her trusty wok, expertly tilted and twisting the large wok to create the perfect round thin pancakes. Eddie had woken up Fiona and the kids for the special treat, and his mother, Victoria, Catherine, and Taxon were assembled in the room as well, early awakening their custom-made red crepes. Can I have mine with some ham and cheese? Taxon said. I prefer savoury ones to sweet ones, especially in the morning. Uncle Taxon, you're missing out if you don't try the fabulous sauce that Archie makes, Eddie said. I want mine with ice cream, young Augustine said. I'll get you eat them exactly as I instruct you to, Eddie barked at his son. Catherine exchanged glances with Alex, who simply rolled her eyes and shook her head. As the family began tucking into the first round of crepes, Astrid entered the dining room with Adam, Pia, and Professor Un. What are you doing here? Eddie said, startled by his cousin's sudden appearance at the house. He thought she had been ordered to stay away by her parents since the Indian engagement scandal. I'm having crepes just like you, Astrid replied breezily. Well, I suppose some of us don't have any shame, Eddie muttered under his breath. Astrid tried to ignore her cousin and went over to greet her auntie with pecks on the cheeks. Victoria stiffened visibly as Astrid kissed her and asked, How's your mother? I hear she's been bedridden for the past 2 days. Implicit in her disapproving tone was that Astrid was the one responsible for making her mother sick. Considering the fact that she managed to play bridge for 5 hours yesterday with Mrs. Lee Yong-jin, Diana Yu, and Rosemary, yeah, I think she's doing fine, Astrid replied. Alex wondered what the doctor was doing at a breakfast table, but ever well managed, she smiled graciously at her old classmate and said, Francis, how good of you to join us. Astrid insists I try some of Archie's famous pancakes. You've been upstairs already? Eddie said in alarm, wondering if she had told Amma that Nikki was in town. Astrid looked him straight in the eye. Yes, I've spent a little time with Amma. She wanted to see photos of my engagement since she helped to plan it. Such a wonderful stroke of luck that there was someone there to capture the occasion. Eddie looked at her open mouthed. Congratulations on your engagement, Astrid, Fiona said. Yes, congratulations, Catherine and Alex both chimed merrily. Victoria was the only aunt not to offer wishes, turning instead to Professor On, how is my mother faring this morning? Well, I haven't had the chance to look in on her yet, as Lucas is with at the moment. What? Are you telling me Nikki's upstairs with my grandmother? Eddie exclaimed loudly. Calm down, Eddie, Fiona chided. Astrid smiled slowly at cousin. Precisely, what is your issue, Nikki, seeing Amma? When did you become her bouncer? He's been banned from the house, Eddie said. Who banned him exactly? Because if you ask me, Amma was certainly quite overjoyed to see him a few minutes ago, Astrid said, calmly pouring some of the chocolate golden syrup into a crepe. Are you sure about that? Victoria said indignantly. Yes, I was in the room when Amma specifically requested to see him. Eddie shook his head angrily, bolted up from the chair. If nobody's going to do anything about this, I am. Nikki's going to have her give another heart attack. Give who a heart attack? Eddie spun around to see his grandmother sitting in a wheelchair as Nick pushed her into the breakfast room. Trailing them were her oxygen tank and several other medical devices, duly being guided along by her tired lady maids. Behind them followed a cast of nurses and on-duty associate cardiologists. Mummy, what are you doing down here? Victoria shrieked. What do you mean? I want to have breakfast in my own breakfast room. Nikki told me that Archie was making her delicious crepes. The young associate looked at Professor Un rather helplessly, but handed his boss several computer printouts. Prof, she insisted on coming downstairs, but I managed to run some diagnostics first. Professor Un scanned the morning reports his eyes wide. My goodness, bravo, Mrs. Young. I'm amazed you're feeling so well this morning. So you ignored the doctor's eyes instead, focused on Eddie. What an interesting place for you to sit, she said mischievously. Oh, sorry, Eddie said, getting flustered as he hastily got up from his chair at the head of the table while Nikki dutifully rolled Zuyu's chair into place. Come sit next to me, Suyu said to Nick, patting the table. One of the maids swiftly produced a chair, and as Nick took his seat beside his grandmother at the end of the head of the table, he couldn't help but grin from ear to ear. For the first time since he arrived in Singapore, he felt like he was home again. Ailing entered the breakfast room and placed a cup and saucer in front of Suyu. Here's your favourite Dai Hong Pao tea. Splendid. I feel like I haven't tasted tea in ages, darling. Did you get my message to see that Nikki's room is made up? For some reason, he's been staying in Sentosa of all places. Yes, Nikki's bedroom is all ready for him, Arlene announced, trying to suppress a giggle. She noticed the veins in Eddie's neck beginning to twitch. Is my little brother coming over tomorrow for Friday night dinner? He asked. Yes, we're making Mr. Cheng his favourite yen wall. Oh, good, Astrid. Be sure to invite Charlie tomorrow night. Astrid's heart soared. I'm sure he would like to come, Amma. Has everyone seen Astrid's engagement ring? Suyu asked. Catherine, Alex, and Victoria craned their necks to study the diamond on Astrid's finger, realizing with a start that they were staring at their mother's old engagement ring. Alex, who had absolutely no interest in jewelry, quickly went, back to devouring her crepes, but Victoria couldn't hide her look of disappointment. She always thought that this ring would be hers one day. Actually, it looks lovely on you, Catherine offered, before adding, "Are you planning on having an engagement party?" Sue cut in enthusiastically. "What a good idea, Arlene. Will you call the Seans and the Tans to come over tonight? Let's have a party." "Of course," Arlene said. "Mummy, I don't think you should have so much excitement when you're beginning to feel better. You should rest," Victoria said officially. "Nonsense. I'll rest when I'm dead tomorrow. I want to see everyone. Let's celebrate Astra's engagement and Nikki's homecoming," Sue decreed. Fiona noticed that Eddie was turning purple, elbowing him in the room. She said, "Eddie, loosen your ascot so the air can get in, and breathe, darling. Breathe deeply." Thanks for listening.